The Secrets of Technology is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give. You're listening to The Secrets of Technology. Hi, I'm Dom Bettinelli, and you're listening to The Secrets of Technology, where we discuss the technology news that's important to you from a uniquely Catholic point of view. And joining me today on the panel are Father Cory Sticha. Hi, Father Cory.
How's it going?
Very well, thanks. And Joanne Mercier. Hello, Joanne.
Hello, hello.
So I kind of think we should have done this episode at Halloween because we're making a Frankenstein monster of a computer today. But no, we're doing this, recording this in the spring of 2020 when it's all kinds of frightening stuff going on anyway, so maybe that works. So let's talk about this. Our first segment is going to be it's a little different from our usual thing. We're going to be talking to Father Cory, who's right here with us, about a project that you've recently completed. That is something that I've looked at for many years and thought that could be really cool, but I'm a little intimidated. So I'm looking forward to talking to you about this. Father Cory, what is it that you've actually done in your home office?
So, admittedly, I recommended this segment so I could brag about my new toy, but you know, all three of us here are sitting in front of Macintoshes of one sort or another. Actually, I've got my new webcam sitting on top of my old MacBook Pro, but we're all Macintosh fans. And one thing I've wanted to do for a very long time was build a Hackintosh. Now, a Hackintosh, kind of a little history lesson about Macs. You know, of course, Macs came out in 1984, I think it was, you know, the famous 1984 commercial and all that.
Right.
And those were very proprietary systems. But as they went on, eventually Apple moved over to the Intel platform, the what's commonly known as the Wintel platform, because of course it was always Windows. And that was big uproar at the time, but then all Mac users suddenly went, but our machines actually run better, so never mind.
Exactly. Some of us weren't so upset.
Yeah. Then all of a sudden they're like, hey, actually our systems are better and they're actually a little bit cheaper than they were when they weren't the PowerPC platform. Never mind, we like this. So, but when they did that, a lot of their chips that they use now on Macintoshes to this day are off-the-shelf hardware. I mean, they're using an off-the-shelf CPU with the Intel i5, i7, i9 platform. They use off-the-shelf video cards, video chips, off-the-shelf USB chips, all the little chips that run your computer. All the hardware is off the shelf now. Of course, custom made by Apple now.
Some of it is, yeah.
You know, a lot of it is, you know, like they custom make their own motherboards.
Right.
But all the chips on the motherboard, by and large, are off-the-shelf things. The webcam that you use on your MacBook Pro is an off-the-shelf webcam that's just been remade for Apple. Things like that. So that means, first of all, that you can run Windows on a Mac now, which, you know, with Boot Camp is very easy. But the other way works as well. There are ways to install Mac OS on a system that does not have the Apple logo on it. Much to, at the time, Steve Jobs and now the other, I forgot, Tim Cook. Yeah. Much to their chagrin, they don't rather like that very much. But I did it, first of all, because I wanted to. I just flat out wanted to. I wanted to build a new system, you know, assemble for the parts and put it together and build this system and be able to run both Windows and Mac on it. And build it to my specifications. Because one thing that you get, of course, when you buy something from Apple, you get Apple specifications. You get a system that's built to how Apple wants the system built. And I wasn't gaining for a market that they want. You know, they want the tech people, they want the creative people, they want the business people. They really don't put out a system for gamers.
Right.
Like if you want to play a top line game, you might be able to. You know, I could go and buy a brand new Mac Mini or iMac, and it probably would run pretty well for games, but it's not specialized for games. It doesn't have quite the processor power, the graphics power for some of the newer top of the line games. So I want to build a system that I could eventually get to being a top of the line system and start out pretty close, and also a system that I can upgrade. With this system, I can build it parts. I can add parts. Like right now, I don't have a dedicated video card in it. It's the video system that's on the Intel chips, Intel processors. I don't know if people realize this now, but Intel processors actually come with video cards built in.
Right.
Basically. So, and that's what your run-of-the-mill MacBook Pro runs on. Mac Minis run on that video chip too. So it all works the same as this. But later I can add a top of the line or, a halfway decent horsepower video card to it and really bump up my specs. A couple of years down the road, I decide, hey, I'm on the 9th edition, the 9th generation of the i7. I want to move to the 10th or even 11th. Okay, I can replace my motherboard and processor and move up to that next step. That's stuff you can't do with the Apple hardware, but you can with the Hackintosh. So that's why I did it.
Okay. And how did you go about doing this? How did you figure out how to do it? And then, and the process, the parts you choose. You don't have to get into too much technical detail, but just in general, how did you figure out what you needed to do? And where did you go to find out? And what parts did you choose? How did you choose the parts that you ended up using?
Right. Well, so there, like many of these techie cultures, groups, there are communities that have really grown up around supporting this process. Just like Linux was, 20, 30 years ago, there was a, Linux support group of people online. Well, now there's Hackintosh support pages. One's called Tony Mac x86, and one's called Insanely Mac. And these are people who they develop the software you need to make the Hackintosh, to install Mac OS and make it run on this system. They help out with here's hardware to recommend hardware. Tony Mac x86 has a whole page of here's current spec hardware for Catalina. I'm running Catalina on this system, the latest, greatest version of Mac OS. Here's current spec hardware that we know will work on that version of Mac OS. Here's what you need to buy. Of course, it's got links to Amazon and Newegg. Newegg, if you're not familiar to it, is basically it's like Amazon, but it specializes in computer and computer components. That's kind of their main market. So went to that site, looked up information, looked up the specs of what does Mac OS support, because Apple builds Mac OS to support their hardware. So what chips do they use in their hardware? Oh, they use the i7. Okay, well, that Intel. AMD processors don't run Mac OS because they're for Intel. They use this version of the front and side bus for one of the chips that supports the processor. Okay, I can get a motherboard that does that. They use these graphics. Okay, they use onboard graphics. We can do that, and so on. So I found a motherboard. It's an Asus motherboard. It's a little bit older. It's a year or two old, which is good because then it's more supported. There actually was on one of those sites, that Tony Mac site, there was actually a forum page that showed, okay, I've got this exact motherboard. Here's how I made it work. Boom, 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 right down the list. So I've got the Intel 9700K, i7 9700K processor, which is the overclockable processor. That's another thing you can't do in Mac. You can't overclock their processors. They're locked. But you can on this thing. So I can, right now I'm running it at stock speed, but eventually I can boost that up. Put 64 gigs of memory in it. Apple wants $1,000 to upgrade any of their Macs to 64 gigs. It cost me $300. 2 1 terabytes SSDs, one for Windows, one for Mac. I got a 2 terabyte hard drive. I've got a case that would send Johnny Ives back into his little white room and never come out, because it's not aluminum. It's glass and plastic and LEDs and LEDs and more LEDs. The fans are all LED fans. I mean, it looks cool, but it is not Apple spec.
Yeah.
So, and then I had one problem I actually had is I needed a webcam. So I had to go buy a webcam too.
Right.
Because I was been using my MacBook Pro for the webcam. And then I've got I don't know if you heard in the background, but the doorbell just rang. That was UPS delivering my second monitor. I've had a second monitor I've used with my MacBook Pro, Well, now I needed another monitor. So I think that was UPS just dropping it off outside. So I'll have to go get that after we're done here.
If you don't mind me asking, how much does it cost to build a machine to the spec? I mean, you've got as you said, a pretty high end machine comparatively. Yeah. The specs are pretty high. So how much would someone have to pay to get all this equipment?
So what I paid, and I'm not going to count monitors, because like I said, one monitor that I'm sitting here with right now, I've had for a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
So that doesn't really count. The other one I just ordered, but everything here except the monitors, the keyboard, and the mouse is right at about $2,000.
Okay.
Which is a good sized chunk of change. Now that's what I also paid for the MacBook Pro that's sitting here.
Right. I was going to say, when you compare that to other Macs, that's actually a really reasonable price.
Well, I spec'd out a Mac Mini, which would be the comparable hardware. Of course, my tower is much bigger than a Mac Mini, but a comparable Mac Mini with comparable specs is about $2,900. So this is 2/3 of the cost of a Mac Mini. And oh, by the way, it's a much larger system with a lot more expandability, a lot more upgradability. Comparable iMac is also very similar, about $3,000. So
yeah,
I mean it is cheaper to do it this way. It's just not easier.
Right. It's just harder to do. So how hard was it? Like, did you run into a lot of trouble? Or did it just all snap together and install the OS and boot up?
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, assembling the system, which I had done before. I've built a number of computers way back when. I mean, this is back in the the Pentiums and the AMD's Athlon 64 eras, way back when. So assembling the system itself, putting it in the case and putting all the parts together and everything, that was pretty simple. That's something, I've done that a bunch of times. Getting Windows on there, of course, was a snap, because this was a system that was, Windows is designed for this kind of system.
Sure.
Putting Mac on there was a little bit difficult. It took me a couple of tries because, like I said, I found a forum post on that Tony Mac that showed this exact motherboard with the i9 processor instead of the i7 processor, not a problem. Except I didn't do things right the first time. I got kind of confused because you had to go through this step, tells you, okay, here's how you set up the BIOS to run. And then you got to go over to this forum page and do these steps. And you come back to this forum page. It wasn't, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. There was some jumping around and I got a little confused. So then I had to back up, redo my USB key. You had to use the USB flash key and to install Mac OS and, redo the flash key, get it set up with the right programs and everything. And then it went slick as everything.
Okay.
And once I got the steps right, after much grumbling and complaining and saying words that aren't fit for air, then it just went on. And now it runs absolutely beautifully. It runs as if it's on a new Mac,
right?
New Apple hardware.
How does it compare in performance to? Have you run any Geekbench on that?
I did run Geekbench, and it actually compares for the multi-core score. It's about 1,000 points faster than that comparable Mac Mini I talked about.
The $2,900 Mac Mini. Yeah.
Yeah, the $2,900 Mac Mini. And it prices out to, or it's, again, it's multi-core specs, sit right about a top of the line MacBook Pro 15-inch, 16-inch.
Okay.
Right in that spot.
So
it's got some power. It's got some horsepower. And this is still the stock speed of the chip. I haven't overclocked this thing yet.
Interesting.
So this is just running as Intel intended right now.
And in case people don't understand, I should reiterate what you said before about overclocking. That is, when they make chips, they usually can run faster than advertised. But in order to but there are variances in production, and not in. So some are more capable of doing that than others. Some have a higher top end than others do, and so they just artificially limit them to the max safe speed. But if you're willing to, you can push them a little more. If you get the ability, in your case, you can push them to run a little faster. That gets more power out of them, but it also makes them run a little hotter. So you have to make sure you have extra cooling and that sort of stuff.
Exactly. And I've got a monster heatsink. The thing sits what, 2 foot tall.
2 foot
I
tall.
mean, this thing is huge. I mean, this thing is a monster.
Wow.
But well, maybe not quite that tall, but it's fairly it barely fits in the case, and the case was designed for a bigger cooler and everything. But it's interesting because if you've been involved in computers, in hardware computers, you've heard overclocking since the 90s.
Yeah.
The 486s, the Pentiums were great for overclocking and all that. Well, now they've got them so that some systems overclock, some won't. And when they talk about the speed of the processor, like mine's a 3.6 gigahertz processor, that's the bottom line.
Right.
That this processor will run on. It'll boost faster as it's running, as more demand is put on it. Well, the advantage of an overclocking chip is I can say, no, that bottom 3.6, no, I want that bottom at 4.6.
Right.
So that processor will never run slower than 4.6.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's different than what it used to be, because overclocking used to be, you've got this 33 megahertz chip. I'm going to boost it. I'm going to double its speed. It's going to be now 66.
Yeah.
Well, now the way modern processors are so wild the way they handle them.
Okay. That's good to know. So, do you have any concerns about system updates when the Mac OS updates, system updates, compatibility with software? Any concerns with that?
That's been an issue in the past. I know with major releases of Mac OS, and actually, I think I timed this about perfectly because, of course, Catalina is like on its 4th minor update.
Right.
So it's been out long enough that any bugs that might have cropped up, anything that Apple might have done, generally not on purpose. Apple isn't trying to cripple Hackintosh. Like I said, I don't think they like it. I don't think they agree with it. But they're also not trying to cripple it.
There's probably so few people doing it that it's not a huge hit on the bottom line.
No, they don't care. And many people, the first step with a Hackintosh is to use an actual Mac to download the software you need. Right. You can't do it off of a Windows machine. So you still have to have access to some Apple hardware somewhere. But there have been problems in the past where a major release of macOS came out, and it would be about a month or so before the Hackintosh community can kind of catch up and fix whatever happened and move on to the next step. So that is a concern. So like any updates for macOS, I'm going to be kind of lagging behind a little bit until I'm sure that it's okay to go to the next level.
Yeah, that happens to those of us running Mac hardware already.
Yeah,
true.
They break their own stuff.
It took me 6 months to upgrade to Catalina on my Mac, so yeah, that's not a problem.
Yeah, I did the same thing. My MacBook Pro, I waited a little while till I knew all my hardware was good or my software was good.
Any regrets or anything you would have done differently?
I don't think so. I mean, they're probably, I probably would have looked at other hardware, but I'm actually very happy with the hardware choices I made. The prices I made. I wanted to keep this low end, and I kind of thought about it for a while. No, because I originally I'd wanted to keep it at the $1,200 level. Gee, I wonder why I chose that number this time.
$1,200.
Yeah, that sounds familiar. But then I decided as I went along, like, no, if I'm going to build this, I need to build this long term.
Yeah.
And the idea is, even if I don't upgrade this system, I can see myself using this in 5 years.
Okay.
And still be happy using it in 5 years. And that was the biggest thing. And
you can upgrade parts. And
I can upgrade quite a bit of it. Yeah. And that's the biggest deal.
Any lessons for others? Who should consider doing this and who should definitely not do something like this?
I would say if you don't feel comfortable assembling your own computer, meaning buying the parts, buying the case, buying the motherboard, buying the power supply, buying the processor,
right,
all these parts that you put into a computer. If you don't feel comfortable doing that, I would recommend not, because you got to, like I said, you got to do the research to figure out what chips are available out there, off the shelf motherboards that Apple uses.
Right.
And that is a complication. And if you're not comfortable enough with knowing how the computer goes together, you're not going to know, well, what video chip do I have? What this, what that, how is this going to work? What settings do I got to use as I'm installing the software?
Right. Okay.
If you feel comfortable tweaking Windows, you might be okay with it. If you're flat out willing to do the troubleshooting and like, you know what, I'm going to follow the steps and install it, go for it. If you can assemble your own computer, you can find pre-built systems like laptops and pre-built desktop systems that will run Hackintosh just fine. They're out there. But again, you got to do the research.
Well, my question is for somebody like me who likes to dabble, but is this above my level, or do I even need something like this? You are an admitted gamer. So
Yeah.
that's what you built this for. I think the most I would ever be doing is either editing video and audio. So would I be better off not, unless I feel like it, get into the labor intensiveness of something like this?
And honestly, I would say it depends. I did it because as much hobby as, because I could have ordered that top of the line Mac Mini and been fine with it. I could order that top of the line Mac, iMac and been fine with it. Or even maybe a scaled down one, one that was more in the $2,000 price range. But I wanted to play.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
And I think what you're talking about are the things that Apple really focuses on. They want, like I said, the creatives. They want the people who are doing the video editing, the audio editing. They want the people who are doing the photography,
Layout, design,
Photoshop and stuff
all
like
that
that.
stuff.
And they want the tech people, and they want the average business user, the average person who's going to use it for doing, Microsoft Office and email and surfing the internet and things like that. And they build their hardware around that, that it does that well. But like I said, it's if you want to get into things like some of the 3D modeling, it's not so good. Some of the 3D video games, it's not so good because they don't build them for that. Unless you want to get the Pro. And I'm not talking about MacBook Pro. I'm talking about
the Mac Pro.
iPro, iMac Pro, and the Mac Pros, the ones that are $4,000 and up.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah. I think if you're the sort of person who hears this and says, that sounds like fun, that would this is probably something to think about.
You're the ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're the one that would do it. If everything I just described, how I did it and everything, and I went very quickly. I mean, you look at those websites and they've got the tools there to do it that make it pretty simple as far as it goes. But if you listen to all this stuff where I'm describing the parts and everything, you're going, yeah, I think you'd enjoy it.
Yeah. And also keep in mind that if you do this, you can't take it to the Apple store. You're pretty much on your own for troubleshooting and fixing problems.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. The nice thing too with something like this, and if nothing else, if you build the system and it doesn't work on Mac, you can still just put Windows on it.
Exactly.
True.
It'll still run Windows beautifully.
So we'll put a couple links in the show notes to the TonyMacX86.com and InsanelyMac.com. And maybe I can get Father Cory to give us a picture of his new Hackintosh we could put in there.
I will do that.
Yeah.
I'll send that to Dom afterwards.
Okay. That'd be fun.
It's pretty.
Yes.
It's pretty. It's just not Johnny Ives pretty.
It's not Johnny Ives pretty. It's crazy. What's the movie? Futuristic movie crazy pretty.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, that's awesome. Well, thanks, Father Cory, for sharing that with us. We appreciate that. So our next segment, I want to talk about something else that's in the news. Is a question that's sort of come up, and it's an interesting question given discussions we've had, especially with Joanne, who's a cord cutter, is will the pandemic finally kill cable TV? And I thought this was very interesting because you'd think with everybody stuck at home, everybody'd be spending more time watching TV and not, going out to restaurants and clubs and bars or whatever. But it turns out that cable TV subscriptions are dropping like a rock, but streaming services are picking up. And so the question is why? And it's the question is as the headline says, is this the end of cable at least as a service where you watch TV and not a pipe for the internet? So what do you guys think of this?
I hope so. My honest answer. But now, having said that, I will admit myself that I don't think my television or streaming watching has gone up since we've started this quarantine experiment. It's just me. But I think what's happening is most people are now home and they're looking at their options, number one. Yep. And number two, they're not afraid to try something. If half of them are on Zoom, and they can figure that out, and then the other half are trying to have figured out FaceTime and, how to watch Netflix on the computer, they're starting to look for other things. And I think that streaming is becoming very, very attractive.
Right.
And I think Sling was giving it away at one point for a whole month, and they went back to 14 days. Some of them were starting to entice you with try us for like 3 weeks and see. And I think people did that, and they went, wait a minute, I could pay for this, and I've already got a lot of the equipment. If you have an Apple TV or a Roku, you're halfway there.
Right.
So I think people are just discovering it because they've got the time to discover it. And I really hope so. Now, admittedly, I have to tweak our system, but we can't get a Verizon Fios man in here or woman because they're not coming to the houses right now.
Oh, yeah.
And in order for me to go from 100 up and down to 400, I need somebody to come in and tweak the box. So I'm on a waiting list, but with 2 of us in the house running 2 offices or 3 at one time, we've had to make some adjustments, but people are going to find that out too. All of a sudden the TV's buffering and it's like, nah, we got to get more power in here.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, but I think that's what's happening. I think people are just home and discovering it, and their friends are telling them you should have done this, and now they're looking into it.
How about you, Father Cory? What do you think?
I kind of think that's interesting. It's something that's been going on with cable TV long before this, and maybe this is that emphasis. Especially people have lost their jobs, or at least they're on hiatus from their jobs, and they're not being paid, and they're looking at that $100, $150, $200 cable bill, going, I can't afford this. But like you said, they can go to Sling and hey, this is $50,
right?
And it's got the channels I watch anyways, because I don't watch all 5,000 channels on my cable system. I watch 1 or 2. Or they're finding things like Pluto TV, where no, it's not the traditional cable channels, but it is, classic Doctor Who streaming 24 hours a day on one channel, and the Cops channel, and this channel, and all the shows I want to watch anyways. I could sit and binge them for like a day for free. And there's stuff like that.
One of the things that's probably a big part of this too is a lot. I know a lot of people, myself included. One of the reasons we've kept cable, 2 things. One thing is news, which you're now able to get online in a lot of ways, but sports, and we have no sports right now. And people are realizing I'm paying for all of these sports channel stuff, and I'm not going to watch classic games from the 80s, instead of new games. I'm sorry, that's just not a thing for me. So it's very interesting. Without sports, I think people are starting to go, why am I paying, like you said, $160, $200 a month for all of these cable channels? And I could spend half that on, so I could, for $50 for the internet pipe, and then another $50, $60, $70 for streaming services of various stripes.
And Universal, through the bomb in the middle of the room with releasing, I guess, what is the Trolls World Tour, directly to streaming. So now others are doing that too, like Hamilton coming to a Disney Plus near you on July 3rd, which some of us are very happy about. But I think that's the kind of thing too. I think movie theaters are also in trouble.
Yeah.
Because, movie studios now are going to be looking at, is it worth us sending it to a movie house? Or is it worth us sending it straight to streaming?
Right. We actually talked at length about the movie theater problem last week, and is it our job to prop up the movie theater business? There are benefits to going to a theater for certain big events, but is it in the best interest of the movie industry or the consumer to prop up the middleman of the movie theater? And that's it's an interesting question. I think with the cable TV networks, the cable TV companies like Comcast and Verizon and whatnot, I think the writing has been on the wall for them for a long time. I think a lot of people have been abandoning the services, and I think this just current situation has accelerated it. And I think people are really. I have CBS All Access. I have all of CBS content. Now I have CBS All Access because I want to Star Trek. And it turns out that was a pretty brilliant idea on the part of CBS, because I would never have subscribed to CBS All Access if not for that.
And now they're going to rebadge it. Now that the CBS and Paramount or Viacom have remerged, they're going to rebadge CBS All Access because they're bringing all the Paramount movies over. So I mean, it's and that's kind of my thought too. Is I think a lot of people too are saying, we don't need classic TV as we understand it, where you tune to a channel and watch whatever's on that channel. Yeah, we've got DVR, but We've got better. We've got a la carte.
Right.
We've got Netflix. We've got Hulu. We've got Disney Plus. We've got CBS All Access.
Which are kind of like channels, though, that you're now paying for individually.
You watch what you want, when you want, and how you want.
Exactly.
You're not tied down to 7 p.m. NCIS is going to watch. No, I'll just wait till the next day and watch it on CBS All Access.
That's true.
10 o'clock in the afternoon.
Unless the show warrants itself, because I still watch, American Idol. And that needs to be watched live if you're voting. Okay.
Sure.
So, but other stuff, like I just binge watched 7 episodes of Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist, which is a wonderful show, by the way. It got better after the middle of the season slump. But I binge watched that at my convenience because I got wrapped up in the storyline. So it depends on, having to be able to do what you want, when you want, is a lot better. And then there's always, you can record it and save it for later, and save it for 9 months if you have YouTube TV.
Yeah. Well, the nice thing is, like with Star Trek, here's an example, both Discovery and Picard, they would come out on Thursday, but you didn't have to be sitting there at the TV at 7 p.m. or 9 p.m. or 10 in the morning on Thursday to watch the show. You just knew that Thursday you could sit down at some time and watch the new episode.
Right. That's true. And we do that as a family with, like, say, The Mandalorian. It would come out on Fridays, and at some point Friday afternoon after the kids finished their schoolwork, we'd sit down as a family and watch it. And we watch it together as a family because it's at a time when the whole family, from oldest to youngest, is available to do that. It was a good time for that. That's the sort of thing that these services can do that the traditional TV just can't.
And one other thing. You can turn them on and off. If you need to pause, like The Handmaid's Tale, for example, on Hulu, we don't know when that's going to come out now because everything's been delayed. So I'm considering pausing my Hulu account and not paying that, not paying the $5.95 a month until it comes back. And then you just turn it on. Nobody has to come to your house. Nobody has to rebundle your stuff. You just turn it on and turn it off as you like it. I think people are finding the convenience of it.
You're not tied into a contract like you are with cable companies.
You pay for CBS All Access for 1 month, binge all the Picard, you end the subscription when you're done watching it, and wait till the next season.
Right. In fact, I wonder though if the cable companies will figure it out like the phone companies did, which have basically ended. They've ended the contract, the cell phone companies, where on the phone, you're locked in for 2 years. You can outright buy your phone, and there's other ways that they get you. But ending the lock-in was a net boon, and part of it was because Apple sort of forced their hand with selling the phones direct in the way that they've done it. I wonder if the cable companies will figure that out before they go the way of the dodo. That'll be interesting. All right, let's move on to our next segment where we got a bunch of different headlines and some interesting ones. I love this first one because I sort of sympathize with both sides. And here's the story: Wink is a smart home hub. There are others out there, but they're like Samsung's smart thing. But Wink was a fairly well-known name within the smart home community, not maybe generally known. Anyway. The way that it worked is you could buy the hub and then you'd hook it up and it was yours to own and everything that connected to it worked. Well, Wink is now, the company is in trouble. They're financially in trouble. They're not surviving very well. And so they've decided and announced with 1 week's notice, by the way, that everyone who's a Wink user has to sign up for a $5 per month subscription as of today, as we record this, in fact. Or you lose access to the devices in your home. And I understand the users are there. You can imagine how mad they are. Like, I bought this device, it worked for a month, and suddenly you're going to turn it off, even though I own this device. But on the other hand, I could look at the company and say, the problem was trusting that you buy once and then the cloud service would be there forever. And I think that's a warning I want to give to anyone for any device, anything you buy. You never, if you buy a device and it depends on a cloud service and you're not paying on a regular basis to maintain that cloud service, this will eventually happen to you. It's just, the companies cannot survive because that's otherwise it's a sort of Ponzi scheme where the company is relying on being able to sell additional devices to more and more people. Well, that stream is going to run out at some point. They're just not going to have more people to sell it to.
Yeah, they have to have some other source of income. I mean, look at Amazon with the Echo devices, things like that. Yeah, they sell them to you cheap. Right. Because they know that you're going to use their shipping service to buy more things.
You're subsidizing that with all your purchases through Amazon in various ways, and including your Prime subscription.
And all that.
Yeah. So, it's the same thing with, there was another product that was like this where Google bought it and then and shut it down. They just shut down the servers. And now enterprising users, it was a different product. I forget what it was called. They figured out a way to set up crowdsourced cloud servers and reprogrammed the DNS, the pointer in the device to point at the new crowdsourced server. And so they, certain numbers of people could keep it running, but it was a very hacky, techie thing to do. Right. It's not for everyone. So, I think that what's the lesson here, I guess?
I think a week's notice is
it's kind of scummy.
Yeah. That is kind of scummy. I mean, give people a little bit of time to adjust and now, especially during this time where everybody's been pivoting right, left, and sideways in all other areas. Now you're going to shut somebody's service off. Yeah, that's not good.
I think Wink is. I think it's very bad for them to do this. I don't think it's at all right for them to shut people off with such short notice. But it's hard to blame them for wanting to charge for a service that had been free. Well,
and I think it's also a lesson of you should have backup plans. Yeah, you might have a Dropbox server, and I know Dropbox is doing well. Dropbox isn't going anywhere anytime in the near future, but it could.
Right.
Same thing with Google, same thing with Apple, same thing with Microsoft.
Right.
Any company could all of a sudden have a bad run, and next thing you know, they're gone, and all your data went with it.
Right.
So
yes.
Have backup plans.
Yep. And don't be reliant on any one single company. I mean, I have a lot of different devices in my home, like smart home devices, and but I mean, if Philips Hue went out of business and somehow that shut down my lights. I mean, Philips is one of the biggest companies in the world, so it's unlikely.
Yeah,
but
it's not
if they
anywhere.
did, I'd have to probably replace the bulbs. But I could go buy bulbs, just like regular dumb bulbs, and put them in and use light switches again. It wouldn't be it would be annoying and a little bit of an expense, but it wouldn't be a disaster. But if I use a cloud company to store, say, all of my family photos, and that's the only place they existed. That would be bad.
That's a problem.
That's another good caveat is don't put all your cloud eggs in one cloud basket.
Redundancy.
Yes, the Department of Redundancy Department. So our next headline is actually, again, a cable company. This is Comcast. So if you're a Comcast subscriber, you know that when you're out and about with your device, you can use Comcast has public Wi-Fi semi-public Wi-Fi for its customers. You'll see these Xfinity Wi-Fi hotspots, and you can get on them. And some of them are in business places, and they're owned by Comcast. But in neighborhoods, you'll sometimes see them. And what that is if you're a Comcast cable customer, your router does two things. It does Wi-Fi for you privately, but it has a second network on it, or Wi-Fi network on it, that's for the public access, so people can jump onto that. And they can't see your data; it's totally separate and all that sort of thing. It is using your bandwidth, so there is some questions of whether that's good for you or not. Well, there are these senators who want Comcast to open up all of its Xfinity public Wi-Fi hotspots, including in people's homes, to school kids to use while they're stuck at home during the pandemic. And Comcast says, I think that might harm our customers. What do you think? What do you guys think of this? Should they be opening this up, or are they right?
Well, in little old Rhode Island, the mobile carriers opened up the personal hotspots to everybody. Now, this is normally some of us have it in our contracts or some of it in our, I shouldn't say contracts, but in our deals, that we get a hotspot and we get about 10 gig a month. but they've opened it all up to everybody in the state through June 30th. And it doesn't seem to be clogging up the works. And I don't think a lot of people are I don't know, I'm not taking advantage of it, even though I don't have any kids in the house to stream everything. But I think for certain occasions like this, in order for the kids to be able to do their work, sometimes all you have in your house is a phone that you can connect to your Chromebook. Well, that's what some of these families have, and that's what they need. So
this is a little different. This isn't hotspot.
It's a little bit different.
This isn't hotspot through your phone. So what this would be, just to clarify, so if I'm a Comcast cable customer and I have a Comcast router in my home that does Wi-Fi, it broadcasts my family Wi-Fi network, and it's like Bettinelli Wi-Fi, let's say. There's also on the same router that's connected to the cable in the wall, that same router is also broadcasting a second Wi-Fi network called Xfinity Public. And if my neighbor doesn't have cable, doesn't have broadband, say, under this plan, they would be allowed to jump onto that Xfinity Public Wi-Fi network from next door and use that for free. Now, under the current system, they would have to already be a Comcast customer to get on there. They would need their Comcast user ID. So it's usually for people who are away from home and out and about to get onto the internet without using their phone as a hotspot. This is a way to get on a Wi-Fi network. So it's really intended for people who don't have broadband at home and, like you say, are usually relying on their phones to get on. This is a way for people to use a faster, more reliable system, a broadband system that doesn't cost them anything. But Comcast says, hey, look, we're already waiving data caps, in which they have. They said that they've waived all data caps for the time being. They've offered free internet for 60 days to new low-income customers, which, 60 days, it's that means people have to commit to a service that they may not, or cancel. We all know how easy it is to cancel your cable, at that point. But they're saying opening up the residential Wi-Fi routers is a step too far. It's asking too much of them.
I think my concern would be on a security level, just allowing anybody else on because I believe, if I remember right, that this Xfinity guest account or whatever it is can be shut down, where you can decide I'm an Xfinity subscriber and I don't want anybody else to be able to walk in here who's an Xfinity subscriber to do it. And I would do that. I personally, now we don't have Comcast out here. We've got a local telephone co-op that handles our internet, but I would feel very uncomfortable with allowing anybody on my router that I don't know. And I guess my thought too is, well, if these senators think it's such an important thing, they're quick to throw money at the problem. Why don't they throw some money at Comcast and say, now will you let them on? But that's just my cynicism. It's like, it's easy for them to just tell this company, you do it, or otherwise we're going to make you look bad in media. It's a little harder to say, okay, we're going to put money to make sure, because I can understand to some extent the potential congestion. I just see more of, like from a home user, I wouldn't want you on my router either anyways.
Well, is this second router type of thing, second channel, or like a guest channel that we would have on a routing
it's even
system?
more separate. It's a second Wi-Fi network. It's on the same hardware, and so it's using the same radios, but it's a separate channel.
It's a virtual private net, or not virtual private network, but a virtual LAN, VLAN they call it.
Yes.
Okay. Would a good hacker be able to jump from one to the other?
In theory.
There's always the chance.
I don't know of any cases where that's been done, but if they can get access to your hardware somehow, or get access to your network somehow, even if it's through this virtual LAN, there's still that chance. No hardware, no software is hacker proof. I mean, it's that simple.
Yeah. Even apart from the hacking aspect, if someone sits outside my house and they start downloading gigabytes after gigabyte of data and just totally sucking up all of my bandwidth, that does affect me. I mean, if I had this situation, I'm trying to do a podcast and I've got, a Skype running and I've got other things I'm trying to load from the internet, and then someone's sucking up all my bandwidth, and I've got, the rest of my family online, and suddenly my connection starts dying, because that pipe is only so big. And then I have concerns about what if someone does something illegal via that connection. Is there enough distinction that I'm not in trouble? That's always worries me about that. That's why I shut off, in the early days of Wi-Fi, people left their routers open so that other people could use them driving by. I shut that off early. I locked it down because I was worried about precisely the thing about somebody doing something illegal, driving up in front of my house and doing something illegal, and me getting blamed for it. Because otherwise I have no defense, and that concerns me too. So I would turn this off. If I was a Comcast customer, I'd be finding out how to turn this off anyway. So I can't really, I don't know.
I'm all for helping people, and I think maybe Rhode Island has it right by using the mobile companies, even though it's not as fast a system perhaps as broadband. But this kind of concerns me because I want to be helpful. Everybody should have the chance and have access. But yeah, I was one of those people in the beginning too that had it open and said, no, I'm closing this because somebody strange is going to sit outside my house for days.
Remember a few years ago, 15 years ago, how many municipalities were setting up public Wi-Fi, like just walking around town, you go, and all that went away. I mean, I think there's still some of those around, but much of that went away, if you notice. And I think partly because of the expense and the difficulty of maintaining it.
And in many places, it was actually made illegal. Comcast and their cronies actually made it illegal in some places to run like a public internet service, even if it's public Wi-Fi. Yeah, I mean, it's different from like saying a library.
Yeah.
But to have like a
outdoors
whole city, if you're anywhere in your city, you have Wi-Fi through the city. That's actually illegal in some places, which is stupid, which is so stupid.
Yes.
But that's a whole nother discussion for a whole nother.
But that does kind of lead me to say maybe we should hoist Comcast on its own petard in this case then, and say maybe because they've done that, we should make them give free Wi-Fi to the poor school kids at home.
There you go.
So there's a little that coming home to roost for them. So let's a little bit more. Joanne, you kind of referred to this next story. Apple's out there doing a little humble bragging about the
There's
iPhone.
Nothing humble about it.
The iPhone has saved the broadcast industry. I mean, so much of what people are seeing on TV these days and in streaming too. Is being done via a phone in some celebrities or journalists or whatever home. And one of the ones they point out was American Idol. The way that the show is being produced now is that they're sending special studio kits out to contestants and judges, including iPhone 11 Pros, a tripod, and a ring light. And then they're doing their audition, their performance on the phones. And you see this all over the place. You see these people. What was it that I watched 10 minutes of it? The Tiger King special.
I haven't seen that.
With what's his name? The actor from Community. I forget. But he was interviewing the people who were on Tiger King, and they all were sent iPhones, to record themselves on it as for the documentary. I mean, it's kind of amazing to think how far we've come with these devices that they can produce broadcast quality.
Yeah, I'm pretty pleased with that. And I was very open with some friends of mine saying that this pretty much revived Idol this year, because it did, because taking it into their homes, not missing a beat. These kids are now listening to, to musicians in their ear, trying to perform. Some of them are very comfortable with YouTube, so this is not too foreign for them. But they do. They send them a kit, 3 iPhone 11 Pros, 1 ring light, and the mounts, and then all the audio stuff. And they're producing very good quality. I have a 4K TV. It looks great.
Yep.
It sounds great, and I think it's a heck of a lot better than Zoom. So
yes,
yeah.
So hey, some people are doing Zoom for TV streaming, but I think that kids are going to adapt to this. I think the younger ones are going to adapt to this, and who knows who's going to come out of it? Whether they might start shooting, socially distant, proper stuff together on these things. It could be leading it to that.
for a while, I mean, that's been one of the things that, as priests, we've been talking about, how do we do live streams?
Yep.
And one of the concerns, and I'm going to throw this out there, YouTube, get rid of your 100 or your 1,000 subscriber or 1,000 follower limit on using your phone as live streaming. That's so stupid.
Well, it's for embedding. You can live stream to your channel, but to embed it on a site.
No, you don't even have the option on the phone to do it.
Oh, from the phone. From the phone, yeah.
From the phone. See, I was able to do live stream from my laptop.
Yeah.
And embed it on my website, and I got less than 100 subscribers.
Oh, okay.
But
to live stream from your phone, you need 1,000 followers.
Yes.
But the phones, I mean, the cameras on these are so good. People have been doing that on Facebook. They've been doing it on YouTube. They've been doing all these live streaming, Zoom meetings, and so on like that from their phone, and it looks maybe not as good as it looks as good as a studio quality camera from about 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't look as good as the top of the line 8K cameras they're using today.
Yeah.
But you take a camera from about 10 years ago when 4K started getting big. That's what these cameras can do. And it's on $1,000 phone, or maybe even less.
Or an iPad. I'm live streaming my parish's masses on an iPad.
Wow.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And it looks pretty darn good with the lighting in the room. And I think this is going to be the future for some folks.
I tell you, if I didn't own a really good webcam right now, so I don't use the built-in webcam on my Mac anymore because they're really bad. So I use a Logitech I can never remember if it's C920 or C290, whatever it is, which is the standard for years and years. And they have newer ones that are even better. But if I didn't have one of those, I'd be using my iPhone with a little software called an app, and then software you install on your Mac called EchoCam or EcoCam. I forget what it is, and it's inexpensive. It's like $10. You can get it for free at low res, but the high def is a $10 straight up. And I would be using that right now to do everything because the quality is even better than the Logitech. I don't do a lot of live streaming, but that's.
Android has something very similar called Droid Cam that does same thing where you can stream your video and pop it up on your computer and broadcast.
It's a video source, right? So it's interesting, and like you said, Joanne, this generation, these are people who are comfortable making YouTube videos on their phones. So this is nothing new to them, and this is, I think, where we're going with this.
Yeah, I do too, and like I said, these kids haven't missed a beat.
Right. Literally and figuratively.
But they haven't missed a beat. So I think this is going to be something, if we go into a second half, of the virus in the fall, kids aren't going to miss a beat. They'll just keep going. Now this might spell the death knell might be sound for such things like soap operas, because how do you do that on a camera? But it's the way of the world.
Yeah, you'd be surprised, I'm sure.
You can't collapse into each other's arms over social distancing.
No, you can't.
Yeah.
All right. So let's move on to our last segment, and we're going to do our picks of the week. And I'm going to start with Father Cory. Father Cory, what's your pick this week?
So all the hardware I bought for this Hackintosh, I bought mostly from one site, and it's called Newegg. Now, this is a site that has been around forever. Actually, it predates Amazon. Mm-hmm. It's been around that long. And when it started out, its focus was computer components. You want to buy a motherboard, you want to buy a processor, video card, whatever, you can order it from Newegg. And they're generally pretty competitive. Actually, there were parts that I found that I bought from Newegg that were the same price on Amazon. So they're pretty competitive and everything. But they're nice because a lot of hardware stores, whether it is like Best Buy and things like that, they don't stock a lot of the components, the parts of a computer, the case and stuff like that. They stock a full computer. Right. They stock keyboards, mice, video, webcams, things like that, but not like a video card or, the chips or anything like that. And so Newegg's great for that, but they've got so much more than just components and computer systems. They've got all kinds of TVs and other electronics. They've got car parts, or not car parts, but car equipment, accessories and things like that, sporting stuff, fitness stuff, things like that. I mean, they got about everything. But if you're looking for, real hardcore computer stuff, whether it's hardcore systems, pre-built systems, or components for a computer to build a Hackintosh or a Windows computer or upgrade a computer or whatever, Newegg's a good source for that.
I've used them a lot for buying like hard drives to upgrade computers and stuff like that too. Yeah, good pick. Joanne, what's your pick?
Well, I have a skill and an app for things that people already have, so they don't have to go out and buy anything this time around. The first one was actually suggested to me by a teacher friend of mine. It's a Amazon Alexa skill for children called Yak Talk Back. And what it does is it gets kids to answer questions. So the kid gives children short stories followed by 3 questions to get them to talk about their day and their feelings. Because apparently being home with their kids, parents are having a tough time trying to find out what their kids are thinking about this whole thing. They haven't had a chance. They haven't developed the skill of talking to their kids every day, probably. So this skill apparently is very good. My friend is an elementary school teacher, and she said that parents have been flocking to it because, nice. and she said, if I can figure it out, anyone can. So it's apparently a very easy skill. I guess you ask the A lady to find this skill, and it will, put it on your device. And then every day the children get to hear a different story with these 3 questions. And it can be the beginning for family discussion. So go ahead.
I was going to say, the only thing I could think of, though, was the song Yakety Yak,
yes.
Don't Talk Back.
and when looking it up on Google, that's what you get a lot, unless you get real specific to find it. So you have to make sure you put Yak Talk Back Alexa skill.
Right.
And it will actually, and it'll still give you Yakety Yak,
Oh, of course, you still
above.
get the YouTube video and everything. Yep.
Of course. The other one I have is out of a necessity to let folks know that they don't have to be huddling around their devices or computers to watch these live streaming masses we've all decided to start doing. So there is an app for your Amazon Fire, Apple TV, Android TV, Samsung, even your Xbox, called Facebook Watch. And when you download this app and then sign on with your Facebook account, all of a sudden, all those videos you've been seeing in your Facebook show up here on a big screen. This is how my husband and I started watching our live stream mass from our parish, because I kept trying to, airplay it on there, and then something would happen or somebody'd call me, and, but this is a dedicated app that will just stream all of the videos that you normally watch on at Facebook. So, and a lot of people don't know about it.
When I saw this app, I'm like, why do I want to put Facebook on my Apple TV? And I'll just watch it. But that's actually a valuable use case. A lot of Father Cory, just like you said, YouTube restricts priests from live streaming their masses on YouTube. So a lot of them are live streaming it to Facebook, but that means you can only watch them on Facebook. So this is a way to get it on the big TV for the whole family to watch. That is
exactly.
That is an excellent point.
The one that's missing is Roku, and I don't know why.
I could guess Roku is Facebook probably wants something in exchange for putting on Roku.
You might be right.
Oh, good. Okay, 2 good ones. Mine is a little bit of a technical one, but I'm just going to suggest it anyway, and you can check it out if you're interested. We all know about VPNs, hopefully we do, which are virtual private networks. It's a way to secure your traffic when you're out and about. If you're out using a public Wi-Fi network like the Xfinity Public or Starbucks or whatever, you turn on a VPN and it encrypts your traffic. Encrypts your traffic between your device, your computer, your phone, your iPad, and the other end of the VPN, which then connects to the internet. Well, DNS is not encrypted. In fact, so all of your searches, every time you enter in a web address, if you type www.google.com, that becomes a number, which is the actual address of the web server that you're connecting to, or various web services. And that's not encrypted. And some people say that's not a big deal. I don't care if anybody knows what sites I got to. I'm not going anything crazy. Well, one of the things that also can happen is you can have spoofing and redirection, but also these cookies and other trackers and bots and other things that are on websites or in apps that want to take over. They want to give out information, you leak your data, leak your privacy over the internet. Well, what NextDNS does is you can put it on your computer, You can put it on your Android, iOS, Windows, Linux, Mac, Chrome OS devices, even some routers, so you can protect your whole home at once. And it will encrypt not only encrypt your DNS, but it will also create some security. So it will block known trackers. It will block, sometimes like these ad bots. It will use Google's safe browsing. Google has a safe browsing system that blocks malware and phishing domains, so that someone can't click on a phishing email and get, they could technically, but if they do, they're likely to get blocked by Google's safe browsing, so you don't get out there. It will block if you typo squatting. So if you're trying to type google.com and you type Google with three O's or one by mistake, actually I think Google's probably fixed that. They probably bought all those domains. But if you mistype a domain name, you'll end up at this other site. Well, this protects you from that, and will even protect you from, with the help of Project Arachnid, which is operated by the Canadian Center for Child Protection. It'll block domains that host child abuse material, just without going into too much detail. So you can't even accidentally end up anywhere you shouldn't end up. So really cool. It has a blacklist feature, so you can say, this isn't on your list of places to block, but this is a problem for me, so don't ever let me go to this domain. Also, it's a whitelist if it accidentally or unfortunately blocks certain domains for you, like a lot of mail lists, like email lists like MailChimp and others. With the emails you get, to click on the link, it's a tracking link to help them keep their analytics, but it blocks those. And they're like, I want to be able to click on the link in the email I get from rei.com. So don't block that one. So you can put those in as whitelists. There are parental controls, so you can shut down your kids' apps and games when they shouldn't be using them, or enforce safe search, or YouTube restricted modes and that sort of thing. And it'll give you analytics. Like, for example, in the last 30 days, my 3 devices that I've got this installed on so far have made nearly 500,000 DNS queries and blocked 35,000 of them.
Wow.
Yeah, and it breaks it all down about things that it's blocking. And I've got one interesting one here. So it says IP addresses making the queries. So one is the Verizon. So that's my home router, and so that's my home router. One is AT&T. That's what my phone is on. But then there's a Home Depot IP address, and I'm like, what Home Depot? What's Home Depot doing accessing the internet for? Like, what? I don't have any Home Depot electronics that have Wi-Fi capability, do I? So I need to track that one down. That's when I'm very curious about how that happened. But anyway, it's nextdns.io. It is free for almost all of the features. I'm pretty sure that I'm trying to think of what if there's a paid part of it. I haven't run into a need to pay yet. It's okay. It's free for up to 300,000 queries a month, which is, again, I've done 172,000 so far this month, and it's halfway through. I may run into that, but I'm an active user, and I've only got 3 devices. If I had all my family's devices on it, I'd go over that. But you can then get unlimited for starting at $2 a month. So not a huge amount. Yeah. So will everyone need this? I don't know. Maybe not. I'm a little more paranoid than most, I think, but I want to be careful on the internet. So this is I decided that this is something I want to pursue at this point. We'll see how it goes. All right. So I think that should do it for us. Those were all good picks. So before we go, I do want to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create Secrets of Technology, including Stan S., Thomas M., Ninth Hour Design, Alfredo B., and Joe T. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Technology and all the shows at StarQuest. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. Going a little fast there. All right, so what do you think of our discussion? You can let us know by commenting on the show at sqpn.com/technology, or the SQPN Facebook page, facebook.com/StarQuestMedia, or sending an email to technology@sqpn.com. And we'll put all the links from our discussion and our picks of the week on our show notes at sqpn.com. If you could, please, we really do would appreciate, because we haven't gotten one in a while, a review of the podcast, an Apple podcast or one of the podcast directories, and also share the podcast with your friends. Help us grow our community of listeners. The bigger our audience, the better we are. That's not just pandering. That's actually true, because it gives us more feedback and more ways to hear from you, to say what you want to hear from. So that's always better for all of us. Until next time, Joanne Mercier, thank you for joining me and sharing the secrets of technology.
Thanks, Dom. Stay safe, everyone.
Father Cory Sticha, thank you as well.
Thank you, Dom.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Technology on StarQuest.